Welcome to Moon.
Good morning. Last week, you saw me make this mold, and it's to make this little guy right here. And now we got to make 150 of these. So today, we're going to mix the resin to the right color. We're going to pour a lot of resin in a lot of cavities. We're going to take them out. We're going to trim them. We're going to, let's see, what do we got to do? We got to trim them. We got to machine the bases on them. We got to drill holes in them. We got to sand them. So you'll see all that going on today, and I hope you stick around, and I hope you have a good time. Okay, I got my bucket of resin, and this is the B side, so that means we got to shake it. Now, you probably are not buying resin in big, 40-pound lots, but we're pouring in production, so this is the most economical way for us to do it. That's why we do it, but you got to shake the B side, and that means, and you really want to thoroughly get it mixed. There are solids, or at least there are components in the B side that settle out. Okay, I'm going to call that mixed. And then we can go on to dispensing, and that's a whole nother deal. Let's go ahead, see if we can't fill this jug up. See if we can't fill this jug with 3 3/4 pounds. Got a scale, got paper towel in case I have a disaster. Let's see. This could go horribly wrong, or I'll do it, perfectly and look like a pro. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Is this going to come flowing out of here? I'm going to be ready for it. All right, here we come. All right, I am dispensing. Very nice. See how gentle that is? See how easy that is? Working like a champ. Now, I don't want to dispense too much, or I'll have to pour it back. So I'm just going to get a sense of how much I've put in here. Just letting it flow in. See, by rolling the bucket, you're lowering the nozzle, and therefore more stuff's coming out. So that's how you control it. All right, I'm going to roll it back up. Okay, wipe so I don't have drips. Secure the bucket so I don't have a disaster, because disasters can happen at any moment. Okay, let's put this on here and see what we come to. Oh, look at me, look at me. Now we've come to the skills portion of the program. This is where the pressure is on me. The deal is, I got this jug of resin, as you just saw me fill, and this is the little boy that we're matching right here. This little guy. So it's this color that I have to match right here. You would just say, well, this is simple. Urethane resin, no big deal, right? You just take your blue, and you take your blue, and you take your yellow, you mix it just right, you get it all pretty, it looks like that, you're done. Except that's not how it works. The problem is, I'm going to have to mix a much darker blue-green in the jug than what it's going, because it lightens. You've seen that in the past if you looked at previous videos. So this is really an experience and skills type of job where I've mixed a lot of resin in my life. I got to hope today that I will succeed in mixing this resin, because if I go too dark, I'm screwed. All I can do is add more resin into the bucket, and I don't want to mix up a lot of this color resin. I want to mix up just the right amount of this amount of color. So that's our goal for today. Basically, I'm going to make a really concentrated little batch of each color, and then I'm going to add that slowly into the jug. So this is going to be my blue. Let's get some paper towel on the job, because I hate handling these dye bottles without paper on my hands. And why? Because you get the dye on your hands. See that? Ugh. This dye is miserable to work with because it gets all over everything, and it's freaking powerful. It's freakishly powerful stuff. I mean, just a snort like that, just that much, will turn this jar of resin bright blue. And this is a pastel color. We don't want to go past it. It'd be super easy to make this into a dark blue-green. I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm going to sneak up on the contents of this jug. I can tell you that. This is the kind of stuff, if you're in production, if you're doing this for money, you have to factor things like this into your price. These are the hours that You know, you think, well, it takes me so much to cast them and do all this stuff. Yeah, but it's stuff like this that you have to factor in to the production that really matters. Okay, mix the blue. Now let's go on and mix the yellow. And let's get a nice wazoo of yellow. Okay, pour the yellow in. This yellow, we don't want a lot of yellow. This is the dramatic part. I'm going to put a little in here. And I'm going to stir it. And you can see how little
pelan-pelan kita lakukan hal yang besar, seperti melakukan hal-hal yang di luar dari kebiasaan kita.
Setelah wajah kita sehat dan juga bersih, ini akan membantu kita supaya lebih percaya diri.
Dan kalau untuk wajah, andalan gue cuma satu.
Rangkaian Garnier Men Agnify dengan salicylic acid
Selalu ada di tas gue. Andalan gue sejak SMK. Gue merasa nyaman dan merasa bersih.
Giliran lo sekarang. What? Choose the next level. Play now.
blue that took to get to that color. Okay, it's really light, so it's going to want more. I know that it's going to need more because it's going to dry a lot lighter. So let's keep sneaking. I also do hate the mess of this, so I keep paper, lots of paper on hand to keep swiping the cups. So I keep my mess under control. Keep stirring, keep stirring. Okay, now it's nice and blue. I know that it's still too light, but I'm going to add just a touch of yellow. Not much. Going to be judicious. I do not want to turn. I want this to be seafoam, this color, which is a lot of white, which is the color of the resin, and it's only slightly. Oh yeah. That's about the right ratio too. Boy, you don't want a heck of a lot more. All right, it is now going to be time for our first measure test, and that means I'm going to weigh out a tiny amount of each one and test it and see what happens. It's about 2.5 hours later. That was a little bit tedious, but you can see here all of my color steps. I snuck up pretty slowly in the beginning. I actually seemed like I was mixing a lot of extra. But when you're mixing a big jug like this, wait a minute, first of all, just stop for a second. Look at the color in the jug. Look at the color of the guy. See what I mean when I tell you that it's like an art form? It's not easy. It's not the same color. It's radically different to get close. I snuck up on it until I got to this one here, and that's where I felt like I was really, really close. So it's time. It's really kind of hard to tell, frankly. It's close, but it's hard to tell. So I poured one. So here we go. Let's see what it looks like. I will take it apart, and we'll see how close. I wouldn't mind being a little dark. If I'm dark, I'm all right. If I'm too light, I'll have to throw more stuff in there. We'll just have to see where I'm at. But I'm pretty close. Oh yeah, I'm still a hair light, just a hair light. And I don't want to be light. I don't want to be light. I want to be, if anything, I want to be just a hair darker. So okay, so let's throw in one more and give it another shot. Okay, so we're pretty close. So let's see. This is the third of the color tests, and we will see where I've actually made a casting and Just keep putting a little bit more stuff in there every time. Should be pretty close now. Yeah, it's pretty close. It's close enough. I would call that a government job. Look at that. Here's our sample boy, and here's our, whatchamacallit boy, the copy. Well, I think we've got the color pretty knocked, and let's just do a test batch and see what they look like. All right, so let's pour us up a batch of these, and we'll start by dispensing out some of the B, some of the B-res, and I don't like spillage on the rim of the jug, so let's wipe it up. So I just poured out a batch into this cup, because that's the cup we're going to dispense in. And we'll do the same exact thing with the A. Okay, so that should be enough A. Beautiful. All right, head over to the scale. Now we know from having tested things out that we need 170 grams to pour a batch of these. So that's what we're going to weigh out. So I got to tear the scale, which means to balance the scale for the cup. And weirdly, you would think that every paper cup in a bag of paper cups would weigh the same, but they just don't. They just have slight variations. So I always make sure I'm right on. My scale is balanced. And so now I'm going to use the old dump method. So we always start with the A side. Set it to 60. We want to get to 85, but if I sneak up, it'll take too long. So I'm just going to dump it to 60. There it went. Set it to 70. There's 70. And there's a little more than 80. 85. The scale is set to 85. And away we go. And we're perfect. Perfect at 85. Okay, so that's that. That's the A side. And let's pour the B side. Same thing. We'll set the scale to, we need to go to 170, so let's be safe and set it to 150. And let's just dump. Okay, that's 150. 160. See, I sneak up in the last few grams, and I'm going to be a little bit over because there's dye in the B side. And the dye weighs a little bit, doesn't weigh a lot, but there you go, 170. No time for talking. We have got to stir, stir, stir because we got to pour quick. We've got 8 cavities to pour and not a lot of time to do it. Let's go back over to where they are. Notice I made a double stirring stick out of 2 popsicle sticks. Works like a champion. Now I'm going to start pouring before this gets warm. So I think they're well mixed. Let's go. Pour about half because these things are going to require tipping because I know from experience that these kids want to catch a bubble in their chins. So I want to get there quick. Okay, so let's tip like that. Stand them on their head, basically, is what I'm doing. And that should shake out the bubble that's caught down in that chin. And now let's fill them. Quick, 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 quick. Go, go, go. Because I'm pouring down a leg, they have nice big pour spouts. So that makes it easy and quick to pour them. I want this topped, baby, top. I want these topped off, maxed out, so that they're not going to be underfilled. I want these things filled up right, baby. Okay, good, nice. Let's get this thing in the tank. In the tank she goes. Close the out valve. Put in the lid. And we're ready to go. And pretty soon the compressor is going to kick on. Told you the compressor would kick on. Let's see what the old witness cup has to tell us. Oh yeah, hard as a rock. Beautiful. Close the inlet valve. That shuts the compressor off from the tank. Let the air out. Beautiful. And once the pressure goes out of the tank, then we'll be able to open the door. Can't open the door with, the pressure is holding the door closed, so you're never going to get that door open. No amount of pushing. We'll do that. There we go. All right, beautiful. All right, first batch. Let's take it over there, pull this thing apart. Yada-da, let's take a look. Very exciting. Get these bands off.
Nongkrong makin seru bareng Nescafe. Rasa ala kafe.
If I take the bands off carefully, they're quicker to put on the next batch. So I'm a little bit careful. All right, don't get them tangled up. All right, very exciting. Let's see what we got here to look at. Let's see how they look. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at those. Okay, admire the part. Oh dear me goodness, look at that. Look at that, see that little tiny bit of flash? That's my partying line. Wow, now that was a big problem, huh? Beautiful, really, really nice. Okay, let's see. Let's hope for the best. Let's put them here so we can see them as they pile up. We only have 150 of these to do. And they all have to come out looking sweet. Looking sweet. 3's good. And they all came out just looking fine. Now what I like to do, because it's easier, is you see that little vent deal on there? We got to get that out of there. And it's easier to do it now than it will ever be again. I can just take an X-Acto and just cleanly and rapidly nick it off. And if I wait 24 hours, those things will be a lot harder to cut off, and they'll leave a little like cut mark. They won't cut clean like they're doing now. So I like to take them out of the molds and trim the sprues immediately. They're hard. But see, they're not rock hard. Notice? Look at that. You can bend that. See, you can bend that sprue. They're hard. They're not going to, degas or anything weird on me. They're not going to like blow bubbles or something. If there's any trapped air inside of them, the bubbles won't re-expand at this point. But they're super easy to cut. You only want to spend a couple of seconds on each one. You don't want to spend all day trimming sprues, that's for sure. Seconds mount up on production jobs. In factories, they spend an inordinate amount of time doing nothing but shaving seconds off each operation, or even fractions of a second off each operation. Because at the end of a process, by the time you're all done with your manufacturing run, seconds add up to minutes, and minutes add up to hours, and that adds up to real money. And I maintain that even if you're a hobbyist, even if you're, doing this for fun, it's still fun to minimize the drudgery labor, You don't need drudgery in your life. None of us need drudgery in our lives, all right? These look great. Boy, they are going to be so easy to clean the flash off. Oh, yeah. Absolutely fantastic. When the castings come out of the mold, they're not flat. The bottoms are not flat. They kind of shrink. They kind of cupped in like that. And we want them to be nice and flat like that. Nice and smooth and flat. This is my beautiful little homemade router setup. Got this jig, which I was also just made, special built for this job. And it just holds those things in place and works like a champ. They stay right in there. Very nice. Works great. And away we go. Let's cut a few. This is just the easiest and simplest way I've ever found to machine the bases of these little pieces flat. It's so much faster than trying to do it by hand. And while it is a bit of a pain to build the jig, the return on investment and the time, it's a no-brainer. This is the fast, simple, accurate way to do it. It works every time. Got my beautiful 1973 Sears Craftsman lathe all set up. Put a flap wheel on it, one of these kind of flatter wheels. They used to be called flatter wheels. But it's just basically a soft sanding wheel. Works great for this job, so let's get going on that. take off all the little dingleberries. It will smooth out the edge around the base. Does a nice job of that. That's kind of a sharp edge left by the router. And we just keep going and get them done, one after the other, just like that. Come out great. All right, let's head on over to the drill press, and I have a little jig set up. So let's fire up the drill. And the whole point of that jig is that it just holds the piece in place. Drilled out the back of his head. Do that again. One more time. And that is the final machining step on these. The only thing left to do is to paint them and string them and pack them and ship them. All right, last pour of the day. And it's been a pretty good day. I made a pretty good number of castings, so we're well on our way. I'm not going to make you sit through while I cast out 150 of these things. I'm too nice a person for that. You don't need to see me make any more than you've seen. You can just trust me that I'm going to make 150 of them. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, hit that like button. Thanks for subscribing. I love you all my subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. And don't forget, I'm still looking for projects. So if you think you have an interesting molding and casting project, that you're not sure how to do it, or you want some help, or you just think it'd be fun to watch me do it here on the channel, hit me up down below in the comments. Likewise, if you have any questions or comments, I always look forward to hearing from you. Don't be shy. Come out of there. I ought to. Some of them make you work. It's because I overpour and I leave a nice big thick bottom so I can machine it off over there. All right, we're done for the day. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.
Belanja di Shopee Live semua diskon 50%. Paling murah di Shopee. Nonton dan belanja di semua sesi Shopee Live. Dapatkan diskon 50% langsung bisa dipakai. Belanja di Shopee Live semua diskon 50%. Paling murah di Shopee.
How many times have you lost or broken the cover to one of your favorite gadgets like this and gone, damn, I need a new one of those? Well, guess what? We're gonna make one of those.
My name is Eric Strebel. I'm an industrial designer. Welcome to my channel about product design and making. Alfred backpack hanger in stainless steel and aluminum, designed by me, holds your backpack, lets you charge your phone, holds your keys, super versatile. So I'm packing up some here that were recently sold. Thanks for those of you who've purchased recently. It really helps support the channel. This is the part that's supplied by the client.
Hey everybody, Adam Savage here in my cave with some infrastructure building. That is my new 3D printer. It's a Bamboo Carbon X1. I also got a new Anycubic Cobra Max in the other room, because I'm getting interested in specific ways in which 3D printing can augment and help my process. But I need a locality where 3D printing occurs. And the workbench here is just not great. I tend to feel weird when I'm hammering something on this vise here and this thing is printing. I'm sure it's not great for it. So I want to build a table, a solid table for my 3D printers. But more than that, there's also the issue of the fact that the soul, the beating lifeblood of a 3D printer is the filament. The filaments are hygroscopic. They suck in water. That water that they absorb naturally chemically is not great for prints. So you want to store them dry. You want to put desiccant in the boxes they're in. They often come vacuum packed, which is ideal. You leave them vacuum packed until you're ready to print with them. And Carbon's AMS system, the thing on top here with 4 kilograms of filament on it, does a great job at keeping it dry. I've got a little hygrometer. I bought the same one everyone in 3D printing uses, this little guy here. Right now, this says it's at 57% humidity here in San Francisco, which is pretty average. But inside the case here, it's only 10. That's ideal. A second Carbon X1 is arriving tomorrow. Because I am so impatient. I want 2 going at the same time. So I want to build a table that holds 2 carbons next to each other. And underneath has some storage, for filament. Dry storage. So today in the mail, I should have received, it should be here in a couple of hours, a little dehumidifier. We're going to hook up the height. So we're going to build a table. We're going to have a cabinet underneath that holds filament on 2 rods. And we're going to put a dehumidifier in there and put a hygrometer and see how dry we can get it. And that would be awesome. So I have some, for solidity, I have one of my favorite furniture materials, 1-inch hardware store plywood. Let's start making some measurements. So if I want 2 of these next to each other, kind of got 18 inches each. So 36 inches across. Great. By 36 by 18. 2 squares. 36 by 18. And how high off the ground? Actually, it's not going to be this, 42. I think I'm going to go with 32 inches off the ground. That'll give me a shelf for stuff. Or even a drawer. And then a cabinet. Yeah! Okay, so... Oh, I could fit two rows deep. That's great. And then I want this, so... Let's say we put this... This is 30. Great. We're going to go with that. We're going to go with the drawer that's 4 inches deep. That's plenty for pretty much frickin' everything. And then below that will be a cabinet. Or actually, the cabinet will be on top and the drawer will be at the bottom. I think that'll be easier. Okay, it's time to cut out some pieces of wood. We got to live stream it a little bit. I'm hoping to get the bulk of this wrapped before that begins, but we'll see. Okay.
Rasain semua rasa lewat banyak tontonan di Prime Video.
Ma? 2 Mei, Ika terkena serangan jantung. Keluarganya pun ikut merasakannya. Anaknya yang kehilangan mentor kesayangan. Suaminya yang kangen dibantuin kerjaan rumah.
Kakek mau cerita.
Apalagi nih.
Ayahnya yang kehilangan pendengar setianya. Siloam mengerti Anda harus kembali ke yang berarti. Ambulans kami dengan para medis terlatih sigap menangani serangan jantung. Spesialis jantung yang siaga di Siloam manapun, dilengkapi peralatan medis mutakhir, siap menangani agar Anda pulih lebih cepat.
Kagak mau cerita.
Lagi nih.
Gitu dong.
Siloam Hospitals, yang berarti segera kembali.
Great. Yeah. Good. All right, so this is the dehumidifier that I bought, and it's just going to live back in here. So I guess we'll do that here. Yeah. Right? Let's make it tiny. All right, it's time to put in the stands for the. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. One thing first. Secure this back. So 22 and 17. Wait, the center is 22. 11/16. see the filament storage?
Mm-hmm. I like it. Oh wow, that's a big dehumidifier.
Yeah, this will do a small room.
Yeah.
We're gonna see. If it,
Wow. Is there gonna be a second? No second rack, right? Just one rack.
Well, there's one back and one front.
Ah, got it. Not one
so
elevated.
I can go one front and one back.
Got it. Not an elevated rack.
What's that?
You could probably
No,
do a second rung. If
I
you-
don't think I can fit a second high. I could maybe. I doubt it.
Maybe the thing to do is a shelf where you do sideways, where it's not rolling but sideways.
Or
Like-
maybe something way back here. For,
Way back here, or just something that's stacking sideways.
Right.
This
Yeah, totally. So.
Because you're gonna have those boxes, right? If you keep them in cardboard boxes, they can just fucking stack them in the small shelf.
Indeed. Isn't that nice?
Pretty.
And this will hold two of them. 53. It's almost down a full 10%. Wow. And the other hygrometer is agreeing with it. Well, I think this is totally successful. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes. We've gone from 60% relative humidity to 47%. And from what I'm looking up, anything below 45 is like optimal levels of humidity to store filament at. So I'm super psyched. I think this is working great. I am now going to add in the drawer and build the drawer, and then I'll put it in place. Did you really not stick there? Probably should have done this beforehand, but that's fine. Six and an 8. Let's do 4. I did 4.5. Fine. 4 and 3. That's 36 and 1/8 on the nose. That's great. Oh, so now it's 4 3/8. Perfect. So. $16 3/8. By
Daging sapi lokal fresh segari kualitasnya nggak main-main.
Yang bener.
Bener. Dagingnya enakan dari Australia yang pasti lebih lembut dan lezat dan dipotong oleh butcher dengan pengalaman lebih dari 20 tahun. Nggak sampai 24 jam langsung dikirim.
Kualitasnya pasti terjamin ya?
Pastinya. Segari, segarnya pasti.
Oh, I got something off by a fair bit. That is fine. That's fine. I see what I did there. Okay, so just what is this? 2 pieces. That's okay. That's this. Right. Let's push this back. But better. All right. This is the last piece. This is the drawer front. And then this cheapy handle will go right in the middle of that drawer front. So we're going to get this on now.
Kapal api kebiar semangat miliaran. Temukan kode uniknya dan kirim lewat WhatsApp. Mudah kan?
I'm really getting low. It's harder every day. I'm really happy with this. This is my new cart for a pair of Carbon X1 bamboo printers, along with an integral dry box, dehumidified dry box that will keep the filament at the right temperature and level of moisture. And then also with a drawer down here for all the stuff, Yeah, really excited about this part. There we go. And that closes up really nicely and looks like a nice little bit of furniture. Yeah. If you want to make one of these for yourself, everything's in this video. I mean, you could draw up plans, but it doesn't really matter. The actual dimensions don't really matter. You can kind of parse it here. It's about 3 feet long, about 18 inches deep. It's 2 squares. And I may end up adding a second shelf in the back of this cabinet for the for the filament I have yet to unwrap. There's no reason to take filament out of its vacuum packing, even to store it in here, as much as I want to take it all out of its vacuum packing. I shouldn't. Should I? I shouldn't. Anyway, I'm really happy with how this looks. I'm going to put it in place. All right, I've sent a print to my printer. There's gonna be some more 3D printing one-day builds coming up. I'm gonna build a dry box for the filament for the Cobra. That's the next one. I'm gonna do that now, but this will be a separate video. See you later.
Hey guys, Adam Savage from Tested here. If you've ever seen the 6-inch ruler in inches and centimeters on my forearm and wanted one of your own, but you didn't want it to be permanent, well, today's your lucky day. You can now buy temporary tattoos of my measuring stick, my measuring forearm, at tested-store.com. Comes like this, goes on in about 30 seconds with a little water. The instructions are on the back. It comes off with rubbing alcohol, and hopefully it warms you up to the idea of permanently attaching a measuring device to your body, because I use mine every single day.
Seru banget, kalian main berani lebih bootcamp. Pas beraktivitas muka jadi kotor karena debu dan keringat. Harus cuci muka. Buktikan sekarang.
This little single board computer is screaming fast. It combines a fast processor faster than an Apple Mac Mini into a form factor not much bigger than a Raspberry Pi. Beyond a fast CPU, it supports Arduino and has GPIO pins, so you can go do projects on it. There is a load of expansion and networking on board, and this thing can even support a form of ECC memory. While this might be small, there's a lot here, so let's get to it. Hey guys, this is Patrick from STH, and this is a Latte Panda Sigma. If you're like me, you probably have a bunch of Raspberry Pis laying around doing various tasks, but sometimes you might wish, well, maybe that Raspberry Pi was a little bit faster. Now there are certainly a wide variety of different options on the market with things like Rockchip and all those other types of ARM processors, but sometimes, you just want to go fast. And in the past, going fast in a small system like this meant that you were probably going to use only E-cores, and so you're always going to be limited in speed and features. So I have to say that I was completely shocked with the overall performance and even things like just how quiet this system was. And I have to say, I've owned a lot of single board computers over the years, and one of the things that I don't like about leaving the Raspberry Pi ecosystem is you always have to worry about support. Like, is the OS going to be supported? Is a board going to be supported over time? And one of the nice things with this is that because it's a 13th gen Intel.
Hey everybody, Adam Savage here in my cave with...
Hi folks, Mr. Anthem here today with another quick lesson on how to render realistically in Photoshop. I'm going to show you how you can use, one, the brush settings to give yourself a very quick and easy brush that will be effective at blending colors together, and two, I'm going to show you how you can use the eyedropper tool to select pigments together on a digital canvas and blend them together. Now this is a workflow that you can use in Procreate or Krita or Clip Studio Paint. What I want you to consider though is that we're not painting realism necessarily, but more so how to consider to bring two colors, values, or pigments on a canvas and blend them together as if it were color pencils that were overlapping wet on wet oil paints. So this is something that you can apply to any style. Now, with that in mind, let's get started. Before we start, if this is your first time doing anything in Procreate or Photoshop, all of these default brushes could be overwhelming. Let's take care of that and give you a good brush to start off with. Take the default hard round brush and open up brush settings to change a few settings. On brush tip shape, set the angle to about 50% and roundness somewhere between 50 to 60%. On shape dynamics, click on Control and set it to pen pressure, and then set minimum diameter to somewhere around 50 to 55%. On transfer, set opacity to pen pressure, and then click smoothing. Changing these few settings will give an organic feeling and pleasant brush to use. You should notice that the brush flows and moves with the weight of your hand quite well. The harder you press, the darker your marks, the lighter, the lighter. Mess around with it. Start with a blank canvas and give yourself a new layer to draw on. Start with your new brush that we just made and start to block in some of values from left to right, from dark to light. If you've done value scale in drawing class, this should look familiar. Make it look something like this, and if it takes a few tries, that's no problem. If it's easier to work smaller, you can scale it up like this once you're done. When you have an even transfer of value from dark to light, select an area like this using the selection tool, invert it, and then remove the rest. Now we're going to start to blend our values together using the same brush and also the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool selects any color or pigment on your canvas that you select. You can do this by holding Alt to bring up the eyedropper. Tap on the value you want, release Alt, and then you can start to paint with the value that you just selected. You'll notice that I'm constantly refreshing the pigment that I'm grabbing with the eyedropper tool. And the reason why is I'm trying to get these values as close together as possible and overlapping them. It's better to do pigments and values and colors that are right next to each other and bring them forward and bring them backwards into one another. Now, you'll notice too that I'm leaving behind some brush marks. That's okay. Using a hard edge brush like this is going to have strokes and marks show, but this can create a more traditional look if you learn how to control it. Repeat this process with the blending brush in my brush pack that you can find in Google Classroom. Again, instructions for installing it are super straightforward. And then repeat the process a third time using a brush of your choosing. Experiment with something that looks interesting in the brush selection tool.
Here we go again. Assalamu alaikum, jazz, peace be upon you and welcome back. Check it out what I have in my hands. Govis G3 Max, the latest model, the flagship of the flagship from this brand, Cinema, Google's Cinema glasses, guys. What is so important and what is so cool about it? Of course, a lot of cool stuff. 5K resolution, 2.5 each for each display, up to 120 Hertz, DCI-P3, 90% color gamut, only 300 grams, and Type-C and HDMI connectivity, and super high screen density. So let's begin with this video. Remember, the buying links will be in the description. Enjoy. Okay guys, let's begin firstly with the small basic informations, features, Type-C and HDMI 2.1 connection cable. The previous models had 1.4 technology, side-by-side 3D and frame packing 3D for the video format. We have standard mode and clear mode. Display panel is dual 0.83 inch micro OLED displays. The previous one had a smaller display, 0.71. Also, the previous models had smaller screen size version, 800 inches. This one can go up to 1000 inch giant screen at 20 meters equivalent, which is superb. Resolution is 2.5K in each display, which basically gives you 5K. The previous model had only full HD, 60 Hz, while this new model can do 120 Hz, though only full HD. 4K is still limited at 60 Hz. Distortion control is -2%. Yes, we have diopter control for the hyperopia, myopia, left-right eye adjusted independently, digital display, 3.5mm headphone jack, and also this new model has built-in speaker. The previous models didn't have it, guys. Plus, the new model has 6-axis image sensor, proximity sensor. The previous model only had proximity sensor, guys. Plus, we have Type-C for external input, camera, SLAM, etc., etc. 300 grams regarding the weight. It is heavier, guys. The previous models were only 200 grams, super light. This one obviously packs more stuff and, of course, just more heavier. 95% DCI-P3 color gamut, which is equivalent to 130% sRGB. The previous model had 113% sRGB. Also, this new model has a wider field of view, 65 degrees. The previous model only 53 degrees, guys. So yes, this is insane piece of tech. If you want to upgrade, big yes. If you want to buy old or new model, makes no sense to buy old model, guys. They buy the new model. It's not that overpriced, to be honest, and in comparison to their pro versions, the Govis Pro and Govis G2, it's not a huge difference regarding the price tag for a new technology and all these specs which is unlocked for you. I hope you enjoyed in this introduction. Let's go now with my different demos and watch this video till the end. Hit that like, guys. Enjoy. Let me know in the comment section your own thoughts. What do you think about this device? Yalla, come on, guys. Go, andale, muchachos. There we go, guys. We are in. Right now I'm using a screen recorder to show you exactly what I'm seeing right now with these beautiful Cinema headsets, Google's glasses, whatever you want to call them.
4K 60 FPS on YouTube. It's stunning, man. I'm just loving what I'm seeing right now. 1000 inches, man. It's just like sitting in the second, third, fourth row in a huge multiplex cinema. That's crazy, man. I love it. It has also rocker for the brightness and rocker for the volume. And just in the second right now test, we'll be testing the loudness and the quality of these speakers. But wow, man, so beautiful. The colors are so vivid. Obviously, full sRGB, 95% DCI-P3, sRGB full gamut. That's crazy how beautiful, how rich these colors are. But just makes no sense to watch anything on the phone when you have these glasses, man. There we go, guys. Testing right now the speakers, max volume. Not bad, guys, but to be honest, for anything, I don't think you're going to be satisfied at all. I'm not even in really kind of loud area right now. I'm just in my studio. This AC is working, laptop. Not satisfied by the speakers, guys. To be honest, not satisfied by the speakers. In the future, they will have to invest more time adding more stronger speakers for sure. Again, not a big con. You can use just earbuds, headphones. I don't think how the headphones gonna fit that, but earbuds should work with these ones. Anyway, let's go next now. Wow, guys, I don't know. I'm speechless how beautiful this is. 5K resolution and 1000 inches. Also, it's super bright, guys. You can even put the brightness at 50%. I'm completely satisfied by this beautiful quality, man, of this ones. Using even their media player included in the bundle, bro. Awesome stuff, guys. 4K 60 FPS. Just laying down on my sofa, not using TV, not using phone. That's it, man. Check it out, man. Beautiful. Just controller. That's it. Hassle free, man. Hassle free. Check this out, guys. Media player, small short test for half minute. Really impressive test, guys. 4K 60 FPS, lag free, and I love what I'm seeing right now, guys. You're gonna enjoy it. It has Android TV, Play Store, and so you can download different applications. 4K 60 FPS handles it really great. Anyway, check this out. Very impressive, super speedy. YouTube player here, YouTube itself, different player, different TV apps. And it's really clean, guys. Check it out. Only 8 different apps installed. You can just go to the Play Store and download yourself different applications, whatever you want to download. Very impressive mini TV player included in the bundle. Okay, guys, we are playing some games for the end. So impressive. I'll be testing 2 different games, guys. One racing game and one FPS game. It's crazy, man. It's crazy how this looks like. It's just a different world, different gaming experience. I'm loving it, guys. I'm loving it. Obviously, it's just special to watch videos, YouTube, etc., but also for the gaming. I would advise you, obviously, to maybe connect a gamepad, but a lot of FPS games don't support a gamepad with Android smartphones, example, but hey-ho. I'm loving it, guys. I seriously love what I'm seeing right now with these Googles. Impressive tech, impressive resolution, impressive visual experience. Let's go next. There we go, guys. World War Heroes FPS game for the end. Also, this game looks very impressive. Super high res, guys, with beautiful colors. Just insane, man. Any enemy? Any enemy there? Nobody there, man. So it's going to be more tougher to play FPS games because they don't support a lot of them don't support gamepads. But if you can play racing games with the gamepad, it's going to be much better, of course. You can connect the Bluetooth gamepad with your smartphone.
Hi folks, Mr. Anthem here today with another quick lesson on how to render realistically in Photoshop. I'm going to show you how you can use, one, the brush settings to give yourself a very quick and easy brush that will be effective at blending colors together. And two, I'm going to show you how you can use the eyedropper tool to select pigments together on a digital canvas and blend them together. Now this is a workflow that you can use in Procreate or Krita or Clip Studio Paint. What I want you to consider though is that we're not painting realism necessarily, but more so how to consider to bring two colors, values, or pigments on a canvas and blend them together as if it were color pencils that were overlapping wet on wet oil paints. So this is something that you can apply to any style. Now with that in mind, let's get started. Before we start, if this is your first time doing anything in Procreate or Photoshop, all of these default brushes could be overwhelming. Let's take care of that and give you a good brush to start off with. Take the default hard round brush and open up brush settings to change a few settings. On brush tip shape, set the angle to about 50% and roundness somewhere between 50 to 60%. On shape dynamics, click on Control and set it to pen pressure, and then set minimum diameter to somewhere around 50 to 55%. On transfer, set opacity to pen pressure, and then click smoothing. Changing these few settings will give an organic feeling and pleasant brush to use. You should notice that the brush flows and moves with the weight of your hand quite well. The harder you press, the darker your marks, the lighter, the lighter. Mess around with it. Start with a blank canvas and give yourself a new layer to draw on. Start with your new brush that we just made and start to block in some of values from left to right, from dark to light. If you've done value scale in drawing class, this should look familiar. Make it look something like this, and if it takes a few tries, that's no problem. If it's easier to work smaller, you can scale it up like this once you're done. When you have an even transfer of value from dark to light, select an area like this using the selection tool, invert it, and then remove the rest. Now we're going to start to blend our values together using the same brush and also the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool selects any color or pigment on your canvas that you select. You can do this by holding Alt to bring up the eyedropper. Tap on the value you want, release Alt, and then you can start to paint with the value that you just selected. You'll notice that I'm constantly refreshing the pigment that I'm grabbing with the eyedropper tool. And the reason why is I'm trying to get these values as close together as possible and overlapping them. It's better to do pigments and values and colors that are right next to each other and bring them forward and bring them backwards into one another. Now, you'll notice too that I'm leaving behind some brush marks. That's okay. Using a hard edge brush like this is going to have strokes and marks show, but this can create a more traditional look if you learn how to control it. Repeat this process with the blending brush in my brush pack that you can find in Google Classroom. Again, instructions for installing it are super straightforward. And then repeat the process a third time using a brush of your choosing. Experiment with something that looks interesting in the brush selection tool.
English is my second language. As a vlogger, I deal with social media a lot, which is actually fun for me, but I will say sometimes it's challenging. For my social media, I have to think about captions a lot that sometimes require me to write in English and reply to emails in English, and I need to make sure that I write everything correctly. That's why I want to show you guys something really helpful for me.
Hi folks, Mr. Anthem here today with another quick lesson on how to render realistically in Photoshop.
December 1916. The Great War enters its darkest hour. Both the Allies and the Central Powers are exhausted, devastated by the scale of the ongoing massacre.
The Walking Dead, they're for real.
In one battle alone, the banks of the River Somme devour more than 1 million corpses.
Where are you ugly bastards coming from?
Riddled with bullets, poisoned by gas, dismembered by shrapnel, and torn down in ruthless hand-to-hand combat.
Taste justice.
Mental World War I FPS action. Yeah, that sounds about right. This is the third World War I FPS ever made, and there's only about 8 of those in total. Codename Eagle was the first one set in an alternate history. Darkest of Days was in a few settings, so I'm not sure if it counts. It's a question for another day. There are some good reasons why this setting isn't that popular for the genre. The public generally views the war as a senseless tragedy and not something you can make video game villains out of easily. People argue over whose fault it was to this day. More importantly than that, these guns are really slow. It's harder to make the combat exciting this way. You could make the combat slower with more consequence to compensate for that, but Necrovision didn't do that at all. This is different.
Vaya con Dios, amigo.
Consider yourself purified.
Oh, not that part yet. I'll take it from the top, starting with the graphics. I like the loading screen, but it's clear there's something wrong with the shadows. This might be hard to see on YouTube, but it looks like bugs are crawling all over this man. That would be realistic, but this is on everything. There was something wrong with the lighting. There are some versions of Necrovision where you need to force DX10 in it, but no, GOG has it already. You would need to go out of your way to make it go on DX9, which didn't solve it. I'll spare the details. It was a lot of, I tried this, but it didn't work, and I tried a lot. Most of it just caused other problems, so I had to give some ground. I had to turn the ambient occlusion off. This makes the lighting look worse, but the screen isn't crawling with grain anymore. War is all about sacrifices after all. During explosions or impacts, the screen can go kind of crazy. It's like this with or without VSync. It can get really bad. Recording didn't pick this up, but sometimes when I used fully automatic weapons, the frame rate would crawl, so I turned it off. It didn't fix the screen issues, but it stopped the slowdown. While not directly impacting the game, I thought this was interesting. BJ's not really in the corner. I put him there in post. Why? The recording overlay, which so far has been invisible in every game I've used it in, shows up. But only when firing certain weapons, so it's on and off all the time. So BJ will be up there blocking all of that out. His spirit is here with us. I'm not going to spoil Quake 4, but this game is similar in that there's a bit of a turning point near the middle. It feels like covering 2 separate games in a video where I'm already covering 2 separate games. I'm going to start with the first part, which is the Battle of the Somme. Or, as it was called at the time, the Great Fuck Up. No, that's not a joke. Necrovision does a great job at setting it up.
Like the rats they love to eat. Remember this hour. Tonight, the forces of evil will be crushed once and for all. This is the call of duty.
What a load of horseshit.
Genius. I think this is supposed to be Field Marshal Haig. He was in charge of it after all. On the first day of the Somme, Haig had been shelling the lines for a few days at this point. He assumed the German trenches would be like his and there should be nothing left by the time he was done. This was the fatal mistake. As we all know now, if Germans have to be somewhere longer than 3 hours and they're not drinking, they start building fortifications out of concrete, some going about 10 meters into the ground. So when Haig ordered his men over the top, shoulder to shoulder, he thought there'd be no resistance, and there was. They had just been having a good time playing some steam pipe assembly board games, so when they saw the parade coming towards them, they made it go away. The British took nearly 60,000 casualties in a day. I think great fuck up is an understatement. In Necrovision, some things are off, like the date is far too late and there's a dragon, so this isn't the 2009 version of Verdun or anything. You play as a soldier just trying to survive the war. It soon becomes clear that something strange is going on in the battlefront.
I think I've been buried alive. An American corpse? Eh? How long have I been out? Do I look like a bloody cuckoo clock?
Yeah, you play as an American southerner named Simon. That seems slightly out of place. While they tried to make the opening cinematic, it's so incoherent that you can't really appreciate it. This game came out in 2009, so they were trying to compete with the likes of Call of Duty. It's not incoherent just because of what you're seeing, but also the order the story is told in. First they're fighting in the trenches, and then the intro cutscene plays. To their credit, you can see production values all over it. The look of it really reminded me of the Death Stranding trailers. Then it starts playing really choppy gameplay, and then back to Death Stranding, and then more choppy gameplay. The sequence seems like something you'd see in an E3 trailer instead of the beginning of the game. Apparently Simon's gonna fight demons and do it with a big glove. Got it. Then right after it, it just puts you back into World War I. I looked it up later and yeah, it was an E3 trailer, they just put it in the beginning of the game. It completely throws a wrench into your expectations for reasons I'll return to later. For now, it's only slightly confusing. After the prologue, I had low expectations, but things started to pick up. The first thing the game teaches you is how to kick an enemy. For me, that's a really good sign. You can make combos from different melee attacks, your kick, and your weapons. This is when the game finally takes your training wheels off. And when it does, there's a lot of fun to be had.
That all you got? Close your eyes and pray. Sleep well.
This is still a very, very flawed game. Let's start with the presentation. For 2009 standards, the character models and texture work range from subpar to average. This is by no means something I'd call a pretty game. This is one of those late 2000s Brown and Bloom titles. For the most part, everything is brown, gray, muted, and washed out, except for sometimes when they crank up the brightness and lights to remind you you're still alive. But to be fair, it is fitting for the setting. I wouldn't expect World War I to look like a Power Rangers Pride Parade sponsored by Fruity Pebbles. There are a few times in the first half and they'll make the colors more interesting, and the night fights look really good. This is where the bright lighting works with the dark backgrounds. Considering its premise, I wish the first half was less generic. While there are moments that remind you it's World War I, from time to time you can kind of forget and feel like you're playing a World War II game. And there were plenty of those around. Even when reality starts warping, it still feels a little bit too safe. Even when they're being fairly generic, there's a lack of consistency across the design themes. Like this mech was made by the same people who made that giant robot Scorpion. Then it starts deploying these organic-looking iBot probes, but the people who made them are wearing steampunk dwarven armor? You might think that this seems odd to complain about. Variety is good in a game, the problem is, it takes itself very seriously. In the first chapter of the game, I started to wonder if it was some kind of parody game, kind of like Spec Ops The Line but sillier. I was legitimately starting to wonder if it was trying to tell me something about the relation between violence in games and story in games. You know how most games by now had audio logs or stuff you could read in a menu? Not Necrovision. You find letters that will fill the entire screen, don't save anywhere, and if you stop reading it you lose a letter and have to go back to look at it. The game doesn't pause. Try reading All Quiet on the Western Front next to Duke Nukem. If your character speaks, the narration gets cut off.
You're under my feet. His leg above me, high on the side of the trench.
I got something special for you. Get the point.
The sound design is okay and the music forgettable. The voice acting, however, is unforgettable.
Yes, there he is. Looks like he's crawling. Almost there. Boys, we have a problem here.
That is what we want. Strong. Yes, he could lead them. He could change it all.
It's not necessarily horrible, it's just odd.
Was something nastier after you?
Yes, verdammt!
Some of the best voice acting is from Simon. He has random one-liners and a dedicated button for them.
Consider your sins forgiven. Well, that's got him. Well cooked. And easy on the onions. Get the point. Take that, freak! Would you care to dance? No? Yes? I guess not. Ah, pain!
If you only knew what this war has unleashed.
I don't know, huh? Well, just try me. How about dragons? Giant monsters, resurrected corpses? You want me to go on?
What's odd is sometimes he'll switch voice actors. His voice does start to change halfway through, but this is a completely different third voice.
Rise and fight! Lord, have mercy.
Who is that? So now for the levels in combat. Necrovision was made by the Farm 51, which had a lot of people who worked on Painkiller.
Here,
Here, take a little painkiller.
The game physically looks similar to Painkiller. It uses a slightly updated version of the engine. Make no mistake, this isn't a Painkiller clone as it has a lot more emphasis on melee combat. A lot of your weapons are slow to reload and many enemy types will run up into your face to fight you. You can hold as many weapons as you can find and you can really play around with it. You can choose between holding a pistol and an explosive, 2 pistols, a pistol and a melee weapon. A good variety, but no dual melee weapons for some reason. Along with that, you have an adrenaline meter which you can use to slow down time. If you're on the verge of death, it'll trigger automatically, giving you a chance to make it out. There's also mini slow-mo. If you kill an enemy with a headshot, a melee combo, or a gun melee combo, the game will slow down a bit. Each combo has a different name, and the game will slow down for about half a second. Brute Willis. I like that. I thought this would be annoying when I first saw it, but I ended up liking it. It encourages using firearms with melee, and finding new combinations of weapons to use. It rewards you mechanically by giving you some adrenaline each time, and it raises your fury level. When your fury goes up, your attack damage goes up, and eventually chain lightning is added onto it. Your fury level only restores when you're in combat, otherwise it'll start draining down. So the better you are with variety, the more effective you'll be. This is a big brain design. In another game, the best way to fight these zombies would be to back off and pick them off from a distance. In Necrovision, running up to fight them in melee range is the most effective. You save ammo since every shot counts for more damage and you need to use less, and it makes the fight quicker, but riskier. So how does it work so well? What is the genius of the level design? Well, I'll tell you the secret. Enemies are brain damaged. None of this works if the enemies are content to just sit back and shoot you. There's already an abundance of melee enemies, but even the ones with guns will run up and whack you with them. Now this could still be challenging except for the way the health system works. When you're near dead and slow-mo kicks in, your health comes back. This will recover about a third of your health, but you can still find medkits, or health in containers, or enemies that drop health. Health is everywhere. The result is the game's not very challenging most of the time. My first run was on the hardest difficulty and I died maybe 3 times in the first 3 quarters of the game. It's not skill, the game's just that forgiving. Until later on. My god, until later on. While it's not challenging at first, it's enjoyable, and the levels are massive. Each level has secret areas with extra items and weapons. Find artifacts to get your fury multiplier even higher. No potions or food though. They could be around a corner or way off the track. I didn't go on my way to find these, and each level still took about 45 minutes to beat. Every level also had its own share of bugs. Enemies would get stuck. Sometimes a weapon wouldn't fire until I switched it. Bosses could get stuck in the air, stuck in a rock, or stuck in the wall. One boss just disappeared, but the door opened, so I continued on normally. Oh, he died when I left. The worst one was halfway into a level where I pressed a button for a bridge and nothing happened. Yeah, there was a bridge sound effect, but no bridge. Only one bridge can be active at a time in a level. I messed up using that bridge earlier. The hardest difficulty doesn't let you make manual saves, only auto ones, so I'd have to go all the way back. Luckily I figured out I could shimmy along the side and that fixed all my problems. Still, that's pretty bad. Necrovision has more bugs than the Amazon. It'll try your patience. So before I get into part 2, I guess I should finally talk about the story a bit. It's the ramblings of a crazy person.
Foolish mortal. Did you really believe your childhood fairy tales about noble dragons? But I am Naga, the last of my kind, and I will help you, not because you saved my life, but because you bested me.
You never met him before, but I guess you bested him in this cutscene just now. Longtime watchers can vouch that I'm used to games with convoluted plots or non-linear storytelling, but this is a little bit beyond that. It's a very cookie-cutter chosen one plot, but it feels like half the pages in the script are missing, and it's going through rewrites as you're playing the game. The game will dump vast amounts of lore and plot threads on you that don't go anywhere and are never mentioned again.
Excellent, Master. When you send a soul to hell, you move one step closer to unleashing your true aspect. Kill enough, and you will pierce the veil of necrovision.
Necro what? What are you talking about?
You'll see.
Oh no, you won't. I'm so lost by the story that I don't even feel comfortable giving an opinion on it. I can only say what I think is happening. Long ago, mankind split into 2 factions, human beings and vampires. Except the vampires don't seem like Dracula vampires, they're like steampunk high elf vampires. Hell, I don't even know if they drink blood. Anyways, the vampires have advanced technology and can control the undead, but they use it to fight demons. They control the undead with a gauntlet called the Shadow Hand, which we saw in the intro. It's kind of like Tim Burton's Infinity Gauntlet. A German named Zimmerman took it to make his own undead army to fight the allies and the demons. So because you kill him, you inherit the Shadow Hand and you become the new vampire champion, like the Santa Claus. So the second half of the game is about defeating hell. That's all you need to know. The Shadow Hand changes things. If you already got into the habit of doing melee combos, this makes it a lot easier. But now you can find vampire weapons to use with it, and raise the dead, and cast magic. Well.
retire. Consider yourself purified.
This was a turning point, and Necrovision really started to shine. You could use the new vampire weapons, but also switch back to your old ones. New enemy types were showing up, and while the environments were still drab, they were different. You got to find upgrades to the Shadow Hand and use new abilities. Instead of a magic meter, the spells just draw from your adrenaline, which means you get less second chances, less chance for slow-mo, and combat gets more dangerous. Everything was improving, even if it was only a little bit. Remember when I said the sound was pretty subpar to average? The vampire shotgun changed me. As a person. With the Shadow Hand, it turns you into a combination of Robocop and the Shredder. Necrovision was on a great track. My hopes were high, but then the game became very, very tedious. Room after room of tough, fast, and hard-hitting zombies. Sometimes they throw in some spiders or the Skaven, but mainly zombies. Having this as a main enemy is annoying, but listen to them. They're like walking cliff racers. Please, God, make it stop. Not even the undead army can make me feel better. They had a decision between making harder enemies or a lot of them, and they went with the latter. There are some ways to make this more tolerable. Whenever you beat a mission, you unlock a challenge map. Beating these will guarantee you're always starting with a piece of weaponry or a Shadow Hand upgrade. Then you can give them a taste of the secret mustard. Too bad you can't unlock it until after the hellish mission. It would have been really nice to have some of these for the Cliff Racer swarms. It's not the hardest section I've ever played, just tedious. With the amount of health and bonuses they give you, it's one of the few ways they can make it challenging. There could have at least been some more variety. The few other enemies they do sprinkle in don't cut it. Wait a minute, where have I seen that before? No. Finally, the dragon. The dragon.
What was it again? The dragon will take me on a ride to hell? I'm just about ready to believe that's no joke.
The demons want to rule all existence. They seek to bring every realm under their control.
Yeah, right, wow. This is some ride.
The flying section has surprisingly tight and easy controls. I consider it to be a break before the hardest parts of the game. They spawn multiple mini-bosses at once, swarms of demons, and long checkpoints in between them. I died in these two chapters more than the rest of the game combined. It's like the screeching zombies, but now they burp and throw things at you. It is a hard road to the final boss. I said the music was forgettable, but not the final boss theme. It's good. Way too good.
I never wanted this. I just wanted to fight my war, not get dragged into yours. But you took all that away from me.
Look how much my war has given you. You are more than any human that has ever lived. You should be on your knees before me, but instead, you will bow your head in death.
They bought this song from a company that specializes in making movie trailer music. You kite the boss for nearly 10 minutes while peppering him with machine gun fire. It's not an ultimate test of using all your weapons in melee with a Shadow Hand, it's using a vehicle. It's a perfect example of how not to do a boss fight. The music is just trying to compensate for its ultimate mediocrity. When you finally beat him, you're the new ruler of hell. At least in the hard ending. There's a different difficulty for every ending, which is surprising but nice. Easy gets you a cop-out, it was all probably a dream but not really ending, while normal gives you a compromise. This could have been a great game, but all the technical problems along with the slog it turns into stop it from becoming one. I'm glad I played it, because I'd like there to be more gun wizards in video games, but I probably won't ever play it again. So now it's time for the second game. Yeah, they made a standalone prequel about a year later. I beat it in a little over 3 hours, so it's about a third of the length. It has no cutscenes between levels, or in the beginning. It just fades in and you're good to go. I think they realized the other story was convoluted, or maybe they didn't have budget for it. There's some new weapons to use and some new enemies to fight, but it's the same old Necrovision. So I'm just going to focus on the main changes. The levels are typically half the size of those in the first game. This is a significant change. Most of the secrets are barely secrets now. I was practically tripping over them while not looking for them, and I only had to go out of my way for a few. This keeps you stronger, but it seems unnecessary. Necrovision Lost Company starts slightly harder than the first game, but it doesn't come anywhere near as difficult. It never really challenges you, but you won't be pulling your hair out either. I saw the AI hiccup a few times. nowhere near the level of the first game. The levels generally look better, along with other visual improvements. Remember the awful burp demons you can barely see? Well, now they stick out more and look a little more demonic. You might recall the Man in the Moon's voice. He's gone through some changes too.
Prove yourself to us, and we will give you power.
A little more intimidating. All these tiny improvements make the game less frustrating and more enjoyable. Even the story they have is better because you can understand it. Hey, do I know you from Watercolors 205? You play Zimmerman before he turns evil during a zombie outbreak. Your mission is to bring a package to your not evil superior, and you fight along Germans while you do it. The set pieces along the way are a joy. Fighting dragons and demons in a biplane is something I never thought I'd see. Nor did I expect who your battle buddy would be.
There's a house close by. I'll get you there. Take a look at your wounds. Wait! You're a damn Englishman. No, Fritz. I'm a damn American. Lieutenant George Patton's the name. Don't be so choosy about who's saving your life, soldier.
And what a team you are. You banter in Patton's tank while killing zombies. Besides sounding funny, the vehicle's also much better than any in the first game. It's a breeze to control, plus you can get headshots in it. Unfortunately, I still recommend the first game over it. It has problems besides the length. Some weapons in Necrovision have good enemy feedback, like popping a head or ripping an arm off with a shot, but several are janky and floaty. It was really the vampire weapons that shined. In Lost Company, you only have a 20-minute level to use it, and it's against demons again. Right after that is the final boss, and it's about as bad as the first game, and then it's over. They nearly threw out the Shadow Hand entirely. That's a shame. The new enemies are mostly redundant, both to old enemies and to each other. They reused some boss fights and areas from the first game without remixing it into something more interesting. It's a lot of wasted potential. Why not expand on the Shadow Hand powers, or balance around the new ones you had to unlock from challenges? Or a campaign where you fight a well-equipped human army with a Shadow Hand? I don't know, something. You have it on the cover, you might as well use it. At the end of the day, these games should be great, but they barely scrape by as good or okay. If you could only choose to play one, I'd recommend the first game. The most hassle-free version is on GOG, and I think the Humble Store as well. The Steam version is questionable. Up next, I'll be covering a mystery RTS game. Thanks for watching, I'm sure no one will guess it. Also, a very special thanks to all the new producers, along with the frankly terrifying amount of benefactors. I was thinking of how I could change the end format up, and I think a Q&A would be a really good idea that I came up with.
Welcome to my credits section, as voiced by Mandalore. Mandalore politely asked if he could copy my credit format, officially making him more Canadian than I am.
Right, okay, I need to answer these. Okay, first question asked by several people. Looks right to me. To put it simply, Empire Earth is like a super Age of Empires. In a single game you could go from leading an army of cavemen to an army of robots. The scale of it was insane. It did incredibly well at launch. Most reviews are good and it got a few Game of the Year awards, and best of all for the studio, it sold over 1 million copies. It ended up getting a spiritual successor, and then there were 2 sequels, but those were varied. Nowadays you don't hear too much about Empire Earth. The first game does have its fair share of problems, but that's not the issue here. A lot of people run into issues just trying to run the thing. Especially the expansion. If the games don't freeze in the menu, there are other problems. This goes for the GOG version and physical copies. The way to fix it is so simple it's aggravating. Let's begin. Some people on Windows 7 say they can run it perfectly fine with no problems, and other people can't. I tried it on my laptop and I can't. The ways I could get it working on there wouldn't let me record it easily and had other problems. For example, check out Legolas. That's a fast arm. Everyone shoots at a Kenyan murder machine fire rate now. It does technically run, but it's nearly unplayable. You can use a free program called 3D Analyze to force your pixel shaders to 1.1, which does work, but I can't record it. So that's good for a regular player, but not for me. There's a multiplayer patch called Neo Empire Earth, which can fix it, but it has its own share of problems. I'll return to this later, but if you're on Windows 10, this won't automatically fix it anyhow. So I had to go on a journey. This is a real website. It's not a joke I made for the video. It's hard to comprehend exactly what I found, but I had to pass in the secret to beat aliens to be here. Now you would think that a website like this would be a dead end, but I swear to God, the night after I went here I had a dream, or maybe a vision. I tried to run this game in every compatibility mode I could think of, except Windows 8. The game won't even start to run on Windows 8. So I thought, what the hell, why not? That fixed it perfectly, for both games. The graphics bugging out is easy too. Just set your acceleration to TNL and you're good to go. It won't work on real Windows 8, but set it to that mode and it works. So now that it's playable, let's start by looking at the graphics. For being a 3D RTS from 2001, it still looks very nice. Sprites typically age better than 3D models, so I thought it'd be a lot worse. It still can get rough, particularly with the character models. You can zoom in really far and some look okay, others are downright terrifying. It appears to be a low-resolution photo of a person smiling just stretched out. It's especially apparent in the cutscenes when you have a character speaking and they're just smiling. Seeing as this is an RTS game, it affects the campaign the most, but doesn't matter too much outside of it. Units have good, easily readable profiles from the top, and that's what matters to me. Even if you do zoom in more, it's usually fine. You'll know when you've gone too far.
I'm the Joker, baby!
What really impresses me is how consistent the art style remains throughout all the ages. You never have that moment where something looks way worse or looks like it was drawn by a different artist or just feels off. Seeing as there are 14 epics in total, that's an incredible feat. It really reminds me of the phrase, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Units and buildings may change, but they're still recognizable. The maps even have a day-night cycle, which unfortunately doesn't affect gameplay, but it looks nice. The visuals don't blow my socks off or anything, but they do their job right. With the sheer scale this game operates on, this could have been a disaster. I guess that's why I don't have a lot to say about the art style. It maintains the same quality throughout the ages, but the sounds are a little different. The sound effects have a lot of stock sounds. There's a fair amount of effects made for the game, but it's hard to tell the difference between them. We're once again in the this isn't great but it's adequate territory. There's a bit of irony with that when it comes to the music. For example, the main theme is amazing. Then you have tracks like this, which are less exciting. Don't get me wrong, it's pleasant, just not very memorable. Or so I thought. Years later, several television networks would buy up a bunch of these songs. History Channel, Animal Planet, CBS, the list goes on. If you want to hunt for it, there are certain episodes of Ancient Aliens that have Empire Earth music. So some of the background tracks were so dull and so inoffensive that they essentially became stock music. For years I'd watch documentaries and start thinking about Empire Earth and thought I was going crazy. Maybe there are others out there who went through something similar, and now you know why. So aside from the theme, there wasn't a whole lot that stood out. The voice acting, however, is phenomenal.
I come to you to make a plea for assistance. If you consent to help, I shall reward you handsomely when I am Duke.
Very well, young William. You shall have our help, and may God be with us.
It's perfect.
What has happened? I'm losing control. The engine is dying.
No fear. It is stupid, after all, to die so needlessly a hero's death.
This is the primest cut of voice acting ham you could hope for. It doesn't matter how talented they are really trying with every line. Have you ever heard someone be aggressively French?
What be your business in our fair town?
How about this?
Now for some sport.
Leave her alone, you swine!
Germans? To arms! To arms!
There's more ham than a Spirited Away cosplay meet. This is the ideal formula for making your RTS lines memorable. Over-the-top voice acting, an offensive accent or just the wrong accent, silly writing. All three of these ingredients blend together perfectly. Some of these lines have been burned into my brain and I don't think I can ever forget them.
Yeah? Sehr gut. Your target? Of course, yeah. What sport?
Yakisoba. Ayacha. Yoyachi.
A chest indeed, dropped no doubt by an inattentive traveler. And look inside, a shining sword and cloth to bandage my wounds.
My lord, the small force we currently have will be no match for Napoleon. We must enlarge our infantry and dragoon divisions and assemble a suitable number of cannon.
Here.
So looking at the presentation as a whole, it's pretty good. Colorful graphics with colorful characters are good at drawing you in and keep you engaged. Now here's what the game's all about. Like most RTS games, you want to gather, build, and destroy. The way resources are distributed is a little different compared to other RTS games like Age of Empires. Empire Earth is all about preparing you for the long haul. A single tree can hold several buildings worth of wood. That's going to take time to deplete. On the other hand, iron, stone, and gold are near unlimited. A single vein can hold around 300,000 of each resource. That'll last the whole game. Food is a lot more limited. A single patch might only hold a few thousand resources, which will go fairly quickly. Animals only have a few hundred food. If you don't give them time to breed, you can hunt them to extinction. Same thing with fishing sites, very limited. This changes in the third epic, the Copper Age, when you can build farms. Now it's like ore, virtually unlimited food. The farms don't need to be reseeded either. As long as they're not blown up, they can be farmed forever. Here's the kicker. Only 6 people can work a resource node maximum. You can increase the rate by sending your citizens to populate a settlement. This turns it into a town center, which can make its own citizens. Plus it gives bonuses to mine resources right next to it. So now it's more efficient. But you can do it again to turn a town center into a capital, which is even more efficient. If you sacrifice 50 citizens in total, then you'll have the most efficient capital for your mining node. But as things get more expensive, you'll just want to go and capture more nodes. You can probably see where this is going. Empire Earth is a war of attrition. You don't exhaust your resources, you exhaust your people. You don't even need houses to increase your population. It increases morale, represented by the green dots, but that helps units resist damage. Just being in the range of an upgraded settlement building will give a tower a 50% resist to damage. This means that most factions will have a home turf advantage. It's not quite the Turtler's Paradise that Supreme Commander is, but it's close. You need a good variety of units to break a defense, and don't worry, there's a lot. The Gold Edition came with a tech tree, and, well, look at it. This isn't for Crusader Kings, it's for an RTS game. Taking it in all at once can feel kind of overwhelming, but luckily you don't have to deal with these all at once. The game has several tutorial missions to teach you with, so it's not that bad. Especially if you've played Age of Empires, there's a lot you'll find familiar. It's the same designer as the first game, after all. There are the age-old priest units that can convert enemies. Then there are the prophets. He doesn't convert people, but he's good at throwing malaria. He can also summon controllable hurricanes to make boats go away. He can set buildings on fire with a lightning strike, and those fires will spread fast. He has volcanoes, the list goes on. Going back to the home field advantage aspect, building a temple will protect an area around it from prophets. If you don't want your people being converted, a university will stop that happening inside its boundary. If you don't build these, you'll probably regret it. I'm getting bamboozled.
Oh my god, dude.
As for combat, the game starts very simply. It's rock, paper, scissors, on sea and on land. The game is very centered around these counters. For example, our humble clubman here. He has no armor at all against spearmen. He can only upgrade armor protecting him from other clubmen. The spearman has base armor from the get-go against them, but can upgrade into more. Armor and damage values increase throughout the ages, so this only gets more important. It just turns into guns and lasers instead of swords and arrows. You upgrade a unit by just clicking a stat to spend resources. The upgrade applies to all units of the same type, and they have a limit of 10 points. Upgrading an aspect like range or attack could be 2 points a pop, whereas something like armor might only be 1 point. So your units can be much more effective at killing their counter, which can get a little more complicated. Civilizations also have unit bonuses. There's even a handy builder so you can make your own and make your friends mad. So you could focus your civ towards a very powerful unit, but it'll still barely tickle its counter. This system might seem okay to you, but it leads into one of the game's biggest flaws, the AI. Besides the random maps, the game has 4 main campaigns to choose from. The Greek campaign is more of a second tutorial about illegally crossing oceans, and I don't ever play it much. The English campaign has a better variety of missions, but the ages it covers are more varied. When you complete missions or side objectives in a game, you get civ points. These carry throughout the campaign, and it's a great idea. Do something more difficult now to make the journey ahead a little easier. This is fine if the setting stays the same. But if you're in the English campaign where the setting jumps from Agincourt to Waterloo, those archer points are wasted now. You need every bit of help you can get. The non-Greek campaigns usually start easy, but then they have a spike of difficulty. The AI will suddenly have a lot of units, fully upgraded too. The AI in this game cheats, and it cheats hard. The best example can be found in the Russian campaign. It takes place in the dark, nightmare future of 2018. The story is a timeless classic. A man wanted by the authorities for having the tallest boots in all of Russia. You make some friends, fight off invaders, it's not too bad. The second mission was one I struggled with for weeks at launch. The campaigns didn't even have difficulties at launch back then, they were patched in later. So I set the game to medium and thought, that was 15 years ago, it can't be that bad. You know, I have all this experience now. There's so many units, and they just don't stop. They just don't stop! I know we are. There are so many enemy ships in the harbor that they're causing a traffic jam. I'd love a profit to hurricane them, but Russia's orthodox and you can't do that. Most of the campaign is this: non-stop swarms of enemies. The AI makes units for free so you can't hit their economy. You just have to weather the storm until you can smash them. The AI also knows exactly what you're building and most likely where all your units are. They will immediately start building free counters to all your units. You can make all the strategies or cool spellcasting robots you want, it doesn't stop it. You're locked in. The best strategy is to build a death wall to catch all their units. Then you invest into the nuclear program until your problems go away. There's so little room for strategy, it feels more like playing a tower defense game. That's what happens when you give the AI a free pass. What's sad is the Russian campaign is the hardest, but also the most memorable. Grigor, the new Russian leader, gets a Gundam as a bodyguard. Then he names it as the new leader of Russia.
Who shall henceforth be known as Grigor II.
What? People don't like that idea, but you can't exactly tell the new guy no.
For the people.
So the robot has to defeat a coup, but the coup was a just as planned kind of thing. Then Grigor 1 dies.
Rest easy, my master. I will ensure your dreams do not die here with you.
He invades China, and then he starts to invade Cuba. Then, of course, he wants to wipe out a few million people, so a Russian general wants to stop him, and he's a cyborg, by the way. So then he defects to the United States, where Predator Polly Pocket tells him the only way to stop him is to go back in time. So you go back to the first mission on the other side, but there's nuclear bombers because Grigor 2 is already there, because he later made a time machine but just went back before they used their time machine. So then you have to fight off the future using modern technology, and it's honestly a pretty fitting way to end the campaigns. This is giving you a taste of the random map AI. It cheats in units, resources, and knows what you're up to on every difficulty. It makes all the strategy completely one-sided. Sure, you can raid their mining camps, but it won't affect their economy. You'll be dealing with attack groups no matter what you do. It also doesn't give up or resign, it fights to the last man. The solution to this seems obvious: just play multiplayer. Well, the multiplayer never took off like Age of Empires did, and I think there are two key reasons to it. The first big one is pathfinding. Let's do a comparison. Here's Age of Empires 2. Look at all this control I have. I can switch up their formation, move it half a second later, and they adapt. It doesn't matter how many units you have or how diverse they are, they move as one. You can organize and move them effectively. Empire Earth has nearly identical formations, a few more in fact, but look how sloppy they are trying to move into one. They do get it, but it takes significantly longer. Now let's move them. And they're kind of wandering all over. Let's move them around. And you see now it's all messed up. It just doesn't have that responsiveness and smooth organization. Besides not looking elegant, the units can get in these traffic jams. The more units you have in a stack, the higher chance something will go wrong with their pathfinding. This makes it harder to sell as a competitive game. Ocean pathfinding is even worse, even in small groups. The other issue is the speed of the game. Empire Earth matches can go on for hours. With all those resources, you can fight on a long time. You can't just set aside a half an hour for a game, you need to set aside an evening. You could set a starting age for later, but a lot of the strategy is building up. And there are a few ages that feel like filler. In the second age in the game, the Stone Age, you can build a dock and an archery range, compared to one epic later in the Copper Age when you can build all of this. There's about 3 of these epics that don't add a lot and just make the games drag on longer. The variety across all the ages is great, and progressing to the end is what makes it so fun. Going from cavemen to mechs in a single game, getting gunpowder before your neighbors, launching those first few carriers. That's what it's all about. If you're a fan of an era, you could play games centered around them in Empire Earth, but you're missing out. You could just play an RTS game dedicated to that era instead of this one. But wait, what about the expansion? Okay, you remember the big tech tree. Well, here's the expansion. Check out the length of it. It's more like a brochure with no fold-out. I don't have a stapler, but you could kind of staple it onto the end here. There we go. Okay, it's really bad. Art of Conquest was outsourced. It shows. It really shows. There are 3 new campaigns, and a lot of them just don't have any voice acting in the cutscenes. I was reading dialogue, so I thought it could be a bug because there should be sound there. I looked it up and no, working as intended. Then you hear someone wish it was quiet again. It's bad. It's bad bad.
Please spare Mediolanum. We have rejoiced at your great exploits in Gaul, and now that you have defeated Pompey's guard force, we are free to join you. If you show mercy, I will go with you to try and rally other cities to your banner.
Whew. The game finally gets a Roman campaign, and it's this.
I shall let my pets decide. Romulus, Remus, which of these envoys would you like to eat? To the other we shall give aid.
I don't remember Caesar having pet tigers, but what's happening? The worst voice work by far is the new units. Not even the acting, the production values.
At your service, to Elysium.
You can hear static.
At your service, Tribune. Forward the frontier. At your service, Tribune.
They even echo over each other. None of the old units do that.
Vini Vidi Vici. Vini Vidi Vici. Vini Vidi Vici.
Assassination software online. I'll be the ghost in the machine. Hey!
The strangest offender is the new SAS unit. There's a lot that's strange about the model, but listen to him.
Affirmative. Just give the word. I'm on it.
Huh. There are 3 new campaigns this time around, shorter in mission length and the scale of the first game. The maps are actually a lot more interesting design-wise than the first game's base campaigns, but it's counteracted. Most missions are tedious. They range from playing Marco Polo, to island hopping, to this one. The World War II campaign is probably the best, which misses the game's main selling point, the new 15th epic, the Space Age. The campaign teases you with it non-stop. Even when you start on Mars, you're still not in the Space Age. Then you finally make it. You can make automatic farms. I guess that saves some population cap. Then you realize that space is just water retextured. You can't have space and water on the same map. The spaceships are just the boats in different forms. This addition might have been neat if you could have water on the maps too. In this form, it would just keep players separated until the endgame. By removing all the naval options, it actually takes strategy away from the game. No attack submarines, no hunter helicopters, no nuke subs. No boats at all. No thanks. Even without space, they did add a few civilization-unique units and some powers. You can even choose one for your custom civilization, but you might not know what a lot of them do. So, you gotta dig out the manual. Or the guide. Wait, that was the wrong manual. The powers are astoundingly poorly balanced. The fact that someone okayed the idea for a priest tower just blows my mind. So the powers range from near useless to game-breaking. That's it, that's the expansion. This was about $40 in today's money at launch. Most people who checked it out went back to the base game. You can still find people playing multiplayer, but not with the game alone. You need to download Neo Empire Earth for that. It installs on top of the base game. A word of warning, my computer said there's a Trojan inside of it. Everyone I know who downloads it says that. Now the guy who made it says it's a false positive. It does work without the spooky file, but I still don't like that. Yeah, it's a time-consuming game, even if you use tournament mode, but I still enjoy it. I really wish it got the HD edition treatment the way Age of Empires 2 and Age of Mythology did. Touch it up a bit, fix some bugs and balance things out, but most importantly, bring the multiplayer back. I'm pretty sure that Rebellion still owns the rights to it. I'd love to see it, but I don't know how big the demand would be. It would be nice not to have to jump through hoops just to comp stomp. At the time of this video, GOG is selling it for $2 and at regular is for $6, which is a great price. I didn't cover it in this video, but don't buy the complete series. 2 is okay, but by God, you do not want to play 3. Do not buy 3. That does it for this video. Tune in next time for the first mod video. Thanks for watching. I'm not sure what game will come after this since Elite is in a bind again. Also, big thank you to all the benefactors. This week's questions will be moved into the next game review video. If you backed in June, your name will show up in July. Thank you.
Fallout 4 is a turning point in the franchise, and it asks several difficult questions regarding the definition and foundation of the series as a whole. What is Fallout? Is it a campaign setting for a pen-and-paper influenced role-playing experience, or is it, more than anything, a distinctive audio-visual brand? Is it the iconography and the mood that matters most, or is it the details of the world building and the tone of the writing? The series has always had a fascinating back and forth between these values, characterized most strongly by Bethesda's Fallout 3 versus the Obsidian-developed Fallout New Vegas. Yet, Fallout 4 is a remarkable collision between the freewheeling, mood-oriented Fallout 3 and the more naturalistic map design of New Vegas, along with its faction-focused plot development. But Fallout 4 is the first Fallout game where you could not guess that it was once based on tabletop RPGs if you didn't already know. Fallout 4 is a heavily streamlined action RPG. It is a piece of software first and a role-playing game second. While faction choice plays heavily into the outcome of the endgame, player choice has never mattered less in a Fallout game, maybe excepting tactics. In terms of the scope of the wasteland, it is both incredibly ambitious and vivid in how it constructs its urban areas, and disappointingly compact when it comes to the rest of the wasteland. Fallout 4 has one of the best main plots of any Bethesda game, and some of the worst side questing. It is a massive accomplishment in visual world building, and a severely disjointed, unevenly paced misfire in the narrative world building department. The dialogue is consistently better than everything in Fallout 3, especially in terms of delivery and timing, but the conversation system itself is a reductive, buggy disaster. I loved this game. I really did. For its visual aesthetic, yet it disappointed me as a longtime series fan. So many of this game's accomplishments in one element of its design are subverted by awkwardness in other elements. It makes you wonder where the franchise is going, because the game truly does go in many new and unprecedented directions. The value of those directions are going to be highly subjective depending on what Fallout means to you as a franchise, what elements of Fallout's iconography and design history define the experience for you. For me, Fallout 1 and 2 were the games that set the tone. Fallout 4 continues the traditions of those games in some ways, in the general mood and in the visual aesthetic, but casts aside many of the role-playing features that made those early RPGs so beloved. These days, though, it isn't the world building that's so exciting about Fallout. It's the world they've already built and already defined and already put on all the advertising material. Fallout is such a vivid setting because it's got one foot in the real world, the late 40s to early 60s civil defense era of the Cold War. It uses the optimistic consumerism of post-war pop culture and juxtaposes it with the brutal radiation-soaked Armageddon that was an actual day-in, day-out possibility for the entire duration of the Cold War. Fallout 4 taps into this more directly than any previous entry in the franchise. You actually begin the game before the war begins. You experience a brief moment of atomic family domesticity, and then the missiles are on their way. In a genuinely fantastic moment, you witness the bombs go off as an elevator slowly brings you down to a vault to be shielded from the shockwave of the radiation and the inferno. Then, immediately, and without discussion, you're cryogenically frozen for a couple hundred years. You are, as the papers will call you, a man out of time, or a woman out of time. This is a good setup, but it's hampered by being too brief, maybe half the time it takes to get out of Vault 101 in Fallout 3. You sign up for the vault minutes before the bombs fall, and everything in the intro is done like a brief, colorful sketch. There's no time to live in the old world before it's gone. We're supposed to relate to this world because it's familiar, but in previous Fallouts, the gone-away world is mostly defined by how foreign and ridiculous it seems in relation to the world as it is. Nostalgically speaking, Fallout 4 tries to have its cake and eat it too, which causes all kinds of problems. In Fallout 1 and 3, there is only the vault to start with. Everything else is unfamiliar and alien, both the pre-war world and the one that sprang from its corpse. In Fallout 2 and New Vegas, you are a tangential part of the new world already. A tribesman, a courier, fringe figures. Their socialization into the world was the player's socialization as well. While the player character in Fallout 4 is an outsider in the new world, they're an insider of the old, and things about the pre-war world that earlier games might have constructed as absurd, this game constructs as lost wonders. Fallout 4 also has, for the first time in a Bethesda game, a voiced player character. Either the war vet father or the collegiate mother of a new family, who the game goes to great lengths to paint as loving and normal in a very 50s kind of way. While it's cool to see the retro-future iconography of the Fallout universe in its golden prime, the giant nuclear-powered cars, the wood-paneled electronics, the casual formality of the era's fashions, the problem is that Fallout 4 is trying to play this nostalgia straight. In previous games, that nostalgia is not so much for the pre-war world as it was, but as it never was. The very first Fallout's intro features American troops executing Canadian citizens in the streets with a patriotic rag playing in the background. The violence that consumed the world of Fallout was always there, just under the surface, not just with nefarious corporations like Vault-Tec, but with the whole system of Golden Age consumption. They consumed until nothing was left, and then reduced that nothing to ashes. The furniture, the fashions, the whole retro future, the iconography is so punchy and so memorable because the dreamy, optimistic nostalgia is poisonously false. This post-nuclear future is the inevitable outcome wrought by the hunger of the Golden Age past. The conflicts of the franchise are forward-thinking conflicts. What civilizations will sprout in the radioactive soil, and what effect can one player have on their intertwining destinies? Fallout 4 is much more backward-looking, mired in nostalgia for the wrong things. It's mired not only in its thematic nostalgia for the pre-war world, but also in its nostalgia for Fallout 3. Fallout 4 feels like an alternate take on Fallout 3 more than a full-fledged sequel much of the time. It uses the same mix of iconic, recognizable brand elements like super mutants and the Brotherhood of Steel, and the same distribution of massive urban sprawl with larger expanses of rural wasteland. It's a much tidier, more compact wasteland, though. And that's a lot of the problem. For all its technical oddities, Fallout 4's wasteland is much more carefully and deliberately arranged than Fallout 3 or New Vegas. It's got regions that are more distinct than the large brown tracts of previous games, like the swamps down south towards Quincy or the glowing sea in the map's southwestern extremes. And this is despite having an overall smaller wasteland. Like Fallout 3, a massive urban sprawl dominates the map, but unlike 3's rendition of Washington, D.C., Boston, Cambridge, and many of the buildings therein, including skyscrapers, are fully integrated with a primary map, and you can transition in real time with no loading from the outer wilderness to the dense skyscrapers of the financial district. Gone are the warrens of subway tunnels and interlocking neighborhood maps, and there is an amazing freedom in shedding those dozens of level transitions you'd go through chasing down objective markers in Fallout 3. Boston in Fallout 4 is one of Bethesda's most genuinely impressive technical accomplishments, totally unlike anything they've put in a game so far, more ambitious and with a compulsively playable execution. The rhythm of urban exploration is so much better than ever before. Accomplishing quest goals is difficult because every block has explorable building after explorable building where, if you can't go inside it, you can probably at least climb on top of it. Even better, Fallout 4 takes more after New Vegas than Fallout 3 in terms of interior map design, with realistically proportioned dimensions that seem to conform to the exterior of the building. None of the labyrinthine multi-map dungeons of Fallout 3 or the Elder Scrolls games. There are some exceptions, but only for buildings that are genuinely massive. So you generally know what to expect from a time investment perspective, and you can navigate towards it through the main game map without interruption. This sounds simple, but it's a revolutionary quality of life improvement in terms of player experience and momentum in the map. The Commonwealth really feels like radiation-blasted western Massachusetts in miniature. Too miniature, ultimately. Skyrim was, and is, one of the all-time great landscapes in gaming. Each hold was so environmentally distinct, and many side quests of each major city had a particular regional flavor. Fallout 3 broke the Elder Scrolls mold that you might see in Oblivion by scattering its side quests all over the wasteland, not just keeping them within the cities, and halved the number of cities and settlements that you might find in the Elder Scrolls title. Fallout 4 combines the two approaches, but not as well as you might hope. Although Boston is a technical wonder, it relies heavily on radiant quests, repeatable randomized quests that combine a nearby undiscovered or uncleared map marker with an enemy type suitable to your level. Settlements sometimes have written quests with actual stories, but the bulk of questing in Fallout 4 is this procedurally generated radiant questing, and managing those radiant quest-generating settlements is its own extensive minigame on top of it. Fallout 4's game world is not arranged like the old Fallouts, not like a tabletop campaign, but arranged instead as a post-apocalyptic simulation with settlements that can be expressed with numbers and statistics which produce XP bonuses and new map markers in the form of quests to make exploration more of an economic system than an expression of curiosity. It is fitting that this is a game about artificial men. The Institute is not the only one creating them. Synth or not, every last character in Fallout 4 eventually reveals itself to be an artificial construct of some sort. Without any kind of cultural distinctiveness, the different regions are just moods of landscape. The southeastern swamp is much like a high-definition version of Point Lookout, the glowing sea like an unbound, sprawling take on the Divide from New Vegas. They're beautiful places, and excellent at creating the moods they set out to create, but they lack the impact they could have had if they had relied more on handcrafted side quests than on procedurally generated ones in what are still, basically, dungeons. It's not quite right to say that the writing in Fallout 4 is great writing, so much as it is great presentation of serviceable writing. Characters are more distinct and memorable than many in Fallout 3, and the dialogue flows better than it has before, but it's very heavy-handed much of the time. This is highlighted really well by how companions are handled within the game. Companions all have affection levels and go through a process where they slowly explain their backstory as you go through the world. Doing things like lockpicking and hacking can increase affection as well as dialogue choices. In fact, the vast majority of them getting to know you is nodding approvingly as you collect loot. And once you've picked enough locks to impress them, they tell you a heartfelt personal anecdote. All the characters are broadly drawn and kind of cliché. The rebel leader with a heart of gold, the tough Irish brawler, the hard-boiled synth detective, the plucky newshound, and the faithful dog, of course. But the voice actors are great, and the dialogue is exceptionally snappy. James Woods is the synth detective, for instance, and he sells the role, even when the details of his backstory veer into the ridiculous. Everything in Fallout 4 exists on this level of colorful caricature. The personalities of your companions, the exaggerated mid-century designs, the self-consciously cheeky soundtrack selections. They may be broadly drawn, but they all vibrate on the same wavelength. The artifice shows through the more companions you travel with. Every single time, even if the anecdotes are different, the progression of your friendship is the same. First, you pick locks and hack turrets, and then they tell you that you're a pretty alright guy, and suppose they owe you a little background. Then you pick more locks and hack some doors, and they say, hey, there's an emotionally difficult twist on the thing that I told you last time. I'm telling you now because we've gotten so close while you've been trying to find duct tape. Then you pick even more locks and hack even more terminals, and they trust you enough to resolve their difficult secret and/or burden. And the first time it happens, it does feel kind of natural, like, we've been hanging out a while, and it makes sense that they want to have an occasional conversation. But then the second time comes around, and the next companion will very seriously say, I've seen a lot of people out here. You're different. And I'm like, I know, I have the world's largest burlap sack full of desk fans, and I want you to hold it. And then they continue to be extremely close, very good friends with you, regardless of whether or not you have done anything of substance together. Their emotional closeness to the player is just another score, like happiness and defense, food and water, hit points and radiation count. That's how it functions in many games, numerical approval scores. But making those scores partially independent of narrative progress and dialogue outside the player and the companion themselves doesn't suspend the disbelief like what you'd have in previous games. Take Fallout 2. You can travel with the overweight trader Vic, but he won't mention his estranged relationship with his daughter until the two actually cross paths in Vault City. Boone in New Vegas does not tell the player his life story whenever you max out his approval score. He asks you to help him revisit a past wrong and tells you about it on location. It feels natural. Fallout 4's companions feel incredibly artificial, even though their characterizations, in the voice acting and their personalities, are positively sparkling by Bethesda standards. Another problem with how the companions deliver their exposition is how it happens in real time. Previous games paused the action during conversations so that you could finish them in peace. Not so in Fallout 4. Your companions sometimes decide to tell you their life story in the middle of shootouts, and you can go several layers of conversation deep before getting interrupted and having to start over. I've also had conversations interrupted by other characters wandering in between, or characters getting stuck on objects in the environment and glitching out of the conversation. It is a technically frustrating reframing of the conversation mechanics, though not so frustrating as the reductive approach to player dialogue on the whole. The first two games in the Fallout franchise were such incredible role-playing titles because of the complexity of the writing, both in the NPCs and in the range of response given to the player. Fallout 3, at least, still had good, neutral, and evil. New Vegas was a major return to form, complex choices with a new transparency regarding how skills and attributes play in. Fallout 4 gives you 4 dialogue choices, only 2 of which mean anything. Yes or no. You have an enthusiastic yes, a skeptical or sarcastic yes, a no, and a request for more information. Rather than being able to ask several questions, you only ever get the one, which then advances the dialogue to the next response where you can ask another question or else respond another way. There were less than half a dozen conversations in my 97-hour playthrough where I was able to ask more than a single question at a time. And where Fallout 3 gave you a binary choice more often than not in how you solve a quest, a compassionate solution and a mercenary one, Fallout 4 more rarely gives you an option at all. Your choice is just whether or not you do the quest, the yes or no choice, not the good or evil choice. In Fallout 4, storytelling and character interaction feels like just one more function of the simulation, another mini-game and not part of the game's design foundation. Fallout 4 plays just as well, functions just as coherently as if you do no quests, as if you do most of them. You'll just level slower. Charisma-based characters find themselves mostly using their powers of persuasion to get extra caps for quest rewards. Most quests in this game have 3 levels of speech challenges dedicated solely to asking for more money, and much less often for simplifying the solutions to the quest. The thing is, though, the conversations are in real time, so if you quick save in the middle of a conversation, you quick load to that exact moment. So even though speech success is determined by a digital roll of the dice, you can roll these dice over and over and over again. It is the least satisfying dialogue of the franchise in terms of interactivity and depth of response. Less interactive by far than even Fallout 3. And again, the focus on procedurally generated radiant quests is a major part of the problem. There are some great handcrafted side quests, like the last voyage of the USS Constitution, where you help a crew of delusional robots repair a rocket-equipped version of a sailing ship, or Human Error, where a remote trading community called Covenant uses the GOAT test from Fallout 3 as a psychological Rorschach to screen for androids, no matter how human they may seem when the torture begins. But these are serious exceptions to the rule. These quests do offer branching choices. The vast majority of quests are constructed by combining things randomly from a list of locations, activities, and enemies. Fallout 4 absolutely does value player agency, however, and in the greater experience of the game's final act, player choice really does win out, but only on the macro scale. The little consequences, the smaller ramifications of your choices, don't matter and aren't kept track of. Again, most side quests don't really offer a choice, and those that do aren't revisited in any way. NPCs that you help are reduced to a unit of population in your settlement management screen. If you fix their narrative struggles, you still have to get their food, water, defense, and happiness statistics consistently up. This is how you show you care about your communities, using the scrap economy and the settlement building interface to keep all those numbers up. If you had just one town to look after, that would be one thing. But as you get deeper into the game, it's clear that they forewent the kind of defined, charismatic fringe communities of Fallout 3, like the Republic of Dave or Andale, for blank canvas settlements onto which the minigame template can be grafted. It's a form of player choice. Whatever you build will become the actual town. The game map literally changes based on player interaction. But it is the same sort of interaction every time. Settlements are interchangeable and indistinct in the hope that the player will care enough about them to create those distinctions themselves. It's a peculiar sort of role-playing experience. You're simultaneously the general of the Minutemen, a knight of the Brotherhood, a top agent of the Railroad, and an operative of the Institute, and you micromanage the destinies of dozens of settlements. You're known across the Commonwealth, and yet you do all that without really ever defining your character in any meaningful way. The voiced responses allow the game to abbreviate your choices on the dialogue wheel to just 1 or 2 words, just 1 or 2 player inputs, yes or no, and the player character's voice actor takes up the slack and lets the dialogue progress. But the player character is never more than a vague idea, the leader of everything, and only in the game's last hours does it require any kind of absolute decision where one path would contradict another. It's a very Bethesda move. In Oblivion or Skyrim, factions were mostly non-competitive. You would eventually lead the Fighters Guild, and the Mages College, and the Thieves Underground, and that was the way of it. Bethesda has never embraced the idea that a character should not be able to do everything in a game based on build. But that saps the significance of having builds at all. In fact, Fallout 4 scraps the vast majority of the RPG mechanics that the series has been using. Skills are out. Perks, as they had been used, are out. The individual significance of attributes has been scaled back. Instead, each attribute has a list of 10 abilities. The number of that attribute will unlock abilities up to that number on the list. If you only have 3 luck, you can choose the first 3 abilities off the luck tree.